Hello, everybody. David Shuster here. It's now like clockwork. Every day there's a White House press briefing as a day when Trump Press Secretary Caroline Levitt creates a mess. Headline: Caroline Levitt brutally fact-checked on judge who blocked Trump.
This judge, Judge Boasberg, is a Democrat activist. He was appointed by Barack Obama. His wife has donated more than $10,000 to Democrats, and he has consistently shown his disdain for this president and his policies, and it's unacceptable.
You're right where I wanted to go about the idea that these people are all foreign terrorists, but Judge Boasberg was originally appointed by George W. Bush and then elevated by Barack Obama. I just feel like I should clear that up.
Let me just say something to that effect, Garrett. 67% of all of the injunctions in this century have come against which president? Donald J. Trump.
It could be due to Donald Trump doing more things that are unlawful and unconstitutional. Also, regarding Judge Boasberg, who has ordered the Trump administration to hold off on some of its massive migrant deportations, the Levitt claim that he is a Democratic activist is absurd. As you heard from the NBC reporter, Boasberg was appointed to the bench in 2002 by George W. Bush and elevated by Barack Obama in 2011. But there's more. In 2014, Judge Boasberg was appointed to the U.S. Foreign Intelligence Court by Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts, a conservative, a Republican. Here's another Republican, former Florida House member David Jolly.
I think critical thinking has largely died in the United States of America, and Caroline Levitt is probably a perfect example of that.
Another example of Levitt's absurd attack on Judge Boasberg involves the fact that the judge has issued several rulings favorable to Donald Trump. In 2016, the judge ordered the release of thousands of Hillary Clinton emails requested by the conservative group Judicial Watch. The judge also ruled the public had no right to view Donald Trump's tax returns.
He is not, as the White House describes from the podium of the press briefing room, a, quote, Democrat activist.
Caroline Levitt, though, is an activist for Republicans and for ignorance. Headline: Trump press secretary dodges key question on identifying gang members. Caroline Levitt fumbled when asked why deportee names haven't been released.
If the White House can publish images, photos, videos of those men, why can't the administration just release basic information like their identities and names?
We are not going to reveal operational details about a counterterrorism operation, but what I can assure you, as I said on Monday, we have the highest degree of confidence in our ICE agents and our Customs and Border Patrol agents who have committed their lives to targeting illegal criminals in our country, particularly foreign terrorists, and they had great evidence and indication. They have the highest degree of professionalism, and they were 100% confident in the individuals that were sent home on these flights and in the president's executive authority to do that.
In other words, we trust the ICE agents, but to your question, we don't trust the agents enough to release the deportees' names so that anyone else, say journalists or defense lawyers, can check if the deportees are actually terrorists. And by the way, there are already reports that some of the Venezuelan migrants deported by the Trump administration to a brutal prison in El Salvador had no connection to gangs or crime or terrorism. Oops.
To the notion of too many injunctions against Donald Trump, that's probably because he's the one president who's acted the most outside the bounds of his executive authority. The death of critical thinking is real. This White House is a perfect example of it. And I think this is also when there's this debate, which surprises me sometimes, whether or not we're in a constitutional crisis. Yes, we are. We've been in a constitutional crisis since we elected an insurrectionist and surrounded him with the trappings of the departments of the United States government, from the Department of Justice to the Department of Commerce to the Department of Treasury, you name it. Those trappings have normalized this behavior in an environment where it shouldn't be normalized.
And White House Press Secretary Caroline Levitt has arguably normalized headline just lying to our faces. Trump's press secretary Caroline Levitt mocked and fact-checked in real time after bizarre claim about tax cuts blows up in her face. The implosion began after a reporter for the Associated Press asked Levitt about Trump imposing tax hikes in the form of tariffs instead of tax cuts as Trump had promised during the campaign.
He's prioritizing that over the tax cuts.
He's actually not implementing tax hikes. Tariffs are a tax hike on foreign countries that, again, have been ripping us off. Tariffs are a tax cut for the American people, and the president is a staunch advocate of tax cuts, as you know.
Actually, according to the Nonpartisan Tax Foundation, tariffs are a form of taxation imposed on another country's imports. Economists broadly agree that such trade barriers raise prices on consumers and negatively impact the economy. A reporter for the Associated Press followed up with this.
Sorry, have you ever paid a tariff? Because I have.
That's
They
it.
don't get charged on foreign companies. They get charged on the importers.
And ultimately, when we have fair and balanced trade, which the American people have not seen in decades, as I said at the beginning, revenues will stay here, wages will go up, and our country will be made wealthy again. And I think it's insulting that you are trying to test my knowledge of economics and the decisions that this president has made. I'm now regret giving a question to the Associated Press. Mary.
Yes, Caroline Levitt turned reality upside down and then got mad after the AP reporter pushed back. Levitt, at 27 years old, is the youngest White House press secretary in U.S. history. President Trump has repeatedly praised her as a highly effective communicator. But in just a few months, Levitt's condescending tone and willingness to lie or spew nonsense on behalf of Trump have become legendary. Critics also accuse Levitt of moral hypocrisy. She often wears a large cross necklace. But last year, Levitt had a baby out of wedlock. 6 months later, just days before Trump's inauguration, Levitt married Nicholas Riccio, a man who was 32 years older than Levitt. Riccio is a real estate developer. Also, unlike Christian biblical teachings, Levitt is not exactly modest about their wealth. On Instagram, Levitt posted photos of her 3-carat diamond engagement ring, which experts appraise at around $100,000. To be clear, if Caroline Levitt wants to show off expensive jewelry or acknowledge her husband's financial success, that's fine. I also don't take issue with Levitt having a child before she was married. But wearing a large cross to highlight Levitt's faith and self-proclaimed Christian morality smacks of hypocrisy. Promoting religion on TV is also hypocritical when you are constantly bearing false witness. And whether you're a person of faith or not, lying to the public is never a good look, especially when you are the chief White House spokesperson. But in Donald Trump's White House, the truth is not much of a concern. Honesty, credibility, and integrity are not priorities. Instead, it's all about amplifying whatever Donald Trump is feeling and claiming, no matter how absurd, ridiculous, or unconstitutional. And so Caroline Levitt fits right in, even as a growing number of Americans find her routine horrifying. By the way, Caroline Levitt recently triggered an international incident with France.
So is President Trump going to send the Statue of Liberty back to France?
Absolutely not. And my advice to that unnamed low-level French politician would be to remind them that it's only because of the United States of America that the French are not speaking German right now. So they should be very grateful to our great country.
X quickly added a community note to posts about Levitt's remarks. The community note read, "It is also thanks to the French that the U.S. is no longer a British colony. France helped make the victory of the U.S. possible. Continental soldiers used French weapons and wore French-made uniforms. And by the end of the war, they fought alongside French soldiers." The note included links to several supporting articles, including one from the Museum of the American Revolution. Check out that video at the link below. It generated a lot of comments on YouTube. One of the most popular is from I Love Idiots, who wrote, "They didn't hire her, Levitt, because she knows what she's talking about. They hired her because she doesn't care what she says and will say anything." Indeed. I look forward to reading your comments about Caroline Levitt now getting blasted by Republicans. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.